Alright, in your notes packet you should have a section labeled fractional coefficients. We've done problems like this in the past. If you take a look at number 1, we have x squared divided by 9 minus x over 6 minus 1/2 equals 0. When we first learned about these problems, we talked about multiplying by a least common denominator. Alright, so for this problem, when you look at 9, 6, and 2, you need to figure out what your LCD for those fractions is. The LCD for 9, 6, and 2 would be 18. That's what we're going to multiply through by to eliminate all the fractions. Now I know there are other ways of doing this problem, but I would like you to follow this pattern because when we put variables in the denominator, this is going to be your only option. So you take 18 divided by 9 is 2 times x squared, gives us 2x squared. 18 divided by 6 gives us 3 times negative x, gives us negative 3x. 18 divided by 2 is 9 times the negative 1 gives us negative 9 equals 0. Now this should look familiar on your solving. You can factor this. We're going to have negative 18 and we have to get negative 3. Your factors are 6 and 3. The 6 would become negative. And then this is a long trinomial, so remember you have to write it out. Or if you can do these in your head, go for it and do it in your head. But factor by grouping. And then remember, once you have it factored, to set each factor to 0 and solve. So we would get negative 3/2 and positive 3. So our two solutions here would go in your set notation, negative 3/2 and 3. Now we can apply the same concept to inequalities, and even when we have terms that do not involve fractions. You still need to focus on the fraction and focus on an LCD. So an LCD between 4 and 12 would be 12, and we are going to multiply through by 12. So again, divide first. 12 divided by 4 is 3. We need to take 3 times our numerator. We have our greater than symbol. 12 divided by 12 is 1, so 5y would stay just 5y. And then don't forget to multiply your terms without fractions by that LCD number. Negative 3 times 12 is negative 36. And continue on solving down from there. So pause this video for a moment. This one should be an easy solve. Go ahead and solve it down. Alright, so we have that entire equation solved down. You should get y is less than negative 3. And for an inequality, remember your solution should include a graph. Most of the problems we're going to do in this section are going to be equations, so you won't have to worry about the graph. Now, a little bit further in your notes packet, skip over the word problems for now. We're going to look at these fractional equations with variables in our denominator. So for the first one, it's the same process. Look at your denominators. We have t, 3t, and 3. You need to come up with the LCD. The LCD between t, 3t, and 3 would be 3t. Now if you think about it, these terms are in the denominator, correct? So could t equal 0? Would that be a solution we'd be able to say is valid? Absolutely not, because if t were 0, it would end up in the denominator, and that would not be an acceptable solution. So one of the steps you're going to have to start to do with these problems is actually see what values for my variable would force that denominator to be 0. These are not going to be included in my domain. If you remember from earlier in the unit, we talked about domain dealing with the denominators. This is where it's going to start to play in. Once you find your LCD and the numbers that are not included in your domain, you're going to multiply through by your LCD, just like we did for the problems that only involved numbers. Divide first. 3t divided by t is 3, times 3 is 9. minus 3t divided by 3t would be 1, times negative 1 is just negative 1. 3t divided by 3 gives us t, times 2 would be 2t. Solve it down from there. This one's really short. 8 equals 2t, t equals 4. Now, is this a valid answer? Check it from up there. Is it valid? Yep. So go ahead and put it in your solution brackets. T would equal 4. Now, a problem like number 2 is the problems we're going to be facing a lot more here. You need to find your LCD, and to find an LCD with binomials and trinomials, you need to factor. So hopefully you see this is z plus 3, z minus 3, and then I would take a negative 1 out here and make this z minus 3 so it matches our denominators a little bit better. Your LCD here is going to include the negative 1, a factor of z minus 3, and a factor of z plus 3. So if you think about this as being your denominator, there are two values for z that cannot be included in our domain. The first would be positive 3, and the second would be negative 3. So include those off to the side. Once you have the values that are not in the domain, go ahead and multiply through by the LCD. So for this first fraction, the negative 1 and the z minus 3 will cancel. So we would take our z plus 3, our numerator, times what's left over, which would be z plus 3. The second fraction, the only thing that does not cancel is the negative 1. So we will take that times the numerator. And for our third fraction, what doesn't cancel is z minus 3 and the negative 1. So we're going to multiply all of those together. Go ahead and take a moment here. This is going to be a little lengthy. I want you to multiply all these together and simplify it down. Alright, take a look down through the solution. Check your work against mine. These problems are going to get long, so watch the negative signs as you're solving down. Once you get your two solutions, notice how 3 is one of our solutions, but we said up here that it cannot be in the domain. That number needs to be thrown out. It will force your denominators to 0, which you cannot have. So negative 1/4 is going to be our only answer, and that's the number you should have in your set. Alright, number 4, don't cross out, but we're going to do this in class. So we're not going to do it right now. I'm going to do it with you tomorrow. I'm going to do 2 more problems with you, number 3 and number 5. If you would like to try these on your own, you're more than welcome to. Remember, factor the denominator, find an LCD, and multiply through. When you start this video again, you will see my work for number 3. So take a look down through your work for number 3. The LCD should have been pretty easy for this one, x plus 2, x minus 2, which means your domain values cannot be 2 or negative 2. But when you solve it down, you do get 2 different numbers. You get 4 and negative 3. Both of those can be included in your domain and are answers to this problem. Go ahead and pause this video again, try number 5, and when you resume the video, my work will be there. Alright, as you solve down through number 5, the 2 answers you should get are negative 2 and positive 1, both of which are on our list for numbers that cannot be in the domain for t. So the answer to this problem is that there are no solutions. The 2 numbers that we did get are both invalid numbers, so they cannot be included in the solutions. Go back, watch this as many times as you need to look through the work. Ask your group mates if you're still having trouble, but I'm expecting that you can complete the 6 problems on the worksheet and have that by tomorrow. Have a good afternoon.